Welcome to this explainer. So today we're jumping right into sorting, efficiency, and waste management. We're going to look at how a massive, sweeping global transformation literally begins with a tiny, seemingly mundane everyday habit. It's kind of wild, but we're going to break down some absolutely fascinating insights that connect the everyday trash sitting right there in your kitchen to the massive, broader global economy.
Okay, let's dive into this. Every single year, humanity generates over 2 billion tons of municipal solid waste. That is a staggering amount of trash. But what if the fix isn't just about, cleaning up the mess after the fact? What if it's about fundamentally rethinking the economy itself? So we have to ask, where does true economic efficiency actually begin? When we think of global economics, we usually picture these massive factories, crazy stock markets, or super complex international trade agreements. But what if the real starting point is, well, way closer to home? What if the absolute foundation of a highly efficient global system is sitting right there in your office, or even your house?
Well, to answer that, we're turning to the incredible insights of Nigerian thought leader Oluyomi Ola David. She describes herself really simply, but so powerfully. She says she loves people and she is deeply, deeply concerned with global development and global transformation. Her work is essentially all about finding those foundational levers, those key things that can really shift the world toward a much better future.
And her entire mindset is brilliantly summed up by this core philosophy. I enjoy generating solutions, influencing policy and strategy, and providing clarity. See, she doesn't just want to sit around and talk about problems all day. No way. She wants to actually fix them structurally. And it is definitely worth noting that her drive is deeply rooted in her personal faith. She views her Father God as the wheel within her wheels. So it's this incredibly unique blend of deep spiritual grounding mixed with a highly practical, policy-driven focus that makes her perspective so uniquely compelling.
Now, what's really interesting here is her central thesis, perfectly illustrated by those brightly colored red, green, and orange bins. She argues that efficient waste handling actually begins with sorting. But wait, not at the giant municipal landfill, and not at the big industrial recycling plant. No, she says it begins at every single waste-generating unit. So, from your personal home to massive corporate firms, she makes it crystal clear, efficiency starts with the person physically throwing something away. She's essentially placing all the power, and let's be real, the responsibility, right there at the source.
She outlines all of this through a very clear, tangible three-step physical process: reducing waste, meticulously sorting it out into specific categories, and then priming those materials for reuse. This specific cycle, reduce, sort, reuse, is literally the absolute bedrock of her entire strategy. Before any piece of waste ever even leaves a building, she firmly insists it must be deliberately managed through this exact operational sequence.
So here's the absolutely crucial part. It's how she frames this whole action. She doesn't just call it a chore. She certainly doesn't call it some boring municipal mandate. She calls it a culture. Every economic unit, she writes, must embrace the culture of sorting right from its point of waste generation. By elevating the act of sorting into a full-blown culture, she's telling us it needs to become this ingrained, completely automatic behavior, like a shared communal value that we all just participate in as second nature.
And if you want to see how this builds into her broader argument, just look at how masterfully she bridges the gap between the micro and the macro. On one hand, you've got these tiny micro actions happening in individual households and local firms. But on the other hand, you have this massive macro impact on overarching economics and grand public policy. She is showing us, plain and simple, that national and global policy isn't just something that magically happens top down. No, it's directly fueled and made entirely possible by what you and I do in our households from the bottom up.
So what is the ultimate goal of connecting all those little micro actions to big macro policy? Well, it's achieving a thriving circular economy. Now, if you aren't familiar, a circular economy is essentially an economic system completely aimed at eliminating waste and ensuring the continual use of resources. She posits that achieving this incredible, highly sustainable level of global efficiency is absolutely dependent on the initial efficiency we gain at the very beginning of the pipeline. And how do we get that? Yep, through that everyday sorting culture.
Which brings us right to the core pillars of her vision: efficiency, economics, recycling, and waste management. Now, she doesn't view these as, separate, siloed industries or some abstract academic concepts, not at all. She views them as a deeply interconnected ecosystem. Think about it. Your daily habit of tossing a recyclable item into the correct bin is directly tied to the overall economic health of your entire nation. She really wants us to wake up and realize that our small, sorted bins at home, They are actually the foundational building blocks of these massive global economic pillars.
Which leaves us with a very practical and honestly a very direct challenge. Oluyomi Oladavid has laid out a super clear blueprint here, where real global transformation relies entirely on individual responsibility at the unit level. So, take a hard look at your own daily routines. Is your home, your very own personal waste-generating unit, truly embracing the culture of sorting? Are you an active participant in building that circular economy, or are you just kind of watching from the sidelines? It's such a small habit, right? But as she so clearly explains, it literally has the power to change the world. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this completely changes how you look at your trash bins tomorrow.